My name is Leora Vale, and yes, you read that right. My brother's engagement party was booked at my own vineyard without my consent. He strode in with his fiancée's family like he'd planted every vine himself, then looked me dead in the eye and told the staff to remove that transient woman from the tasting room. That transient woman was me. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was my entire family knew. They'd planned it. They expected me to pay for it in silence. The second I stepped onto the gravel path of my parents' house in Napa, that familiar weight settled on my sternum, like my ribs were rehearsing for collapse. It was late May, the air thick with eucalyptus and fermenting grapes. I hadn't been home in 7 months. Not because I was too busy, but because I knew exactly how this would go. My mother greeted me with that smile, the one that never reached the corners. "Leora, darling, still in charcoal linen?" she sing-songed, kissing the air beside my ear. "A pop of color wouldn't kill you." I forced a laugh. "Hi, Mom." Dad was already at the farm table, halfway through his tri-tip, eyes locked on his plate, like it might confess if he stared long enough. And then there was Jude, sprawled on the leather sectional like he was posing for a lifestyle spread, draped in a linen shirt I'm positive he didn't pay for. His lips curled into that half-smirk I'd grown up loathing. "Well, well," he drawled, standing. "Napa's favorite ghost returns. Did you finally finish balancing your ledgers?" I didn't bite. I nodded and took the seat opposite him. The table was set with Mom's best Heath ceramics, only for holidays, interventions, or announcements that should have been my first clue. Dinner began brittle. Mom praised the fog. Dad mentioned the 101. Jude posted a selfie mid-bite, angling the phone to crop me out. I should have left then. Instead, I buttered a roll and tried to convince myself this was just dinner. Then Jude stood. "I have something epic to share," he beamed, lifting his glass. "My 35th is coming up, and it's going to be legendary. Think Coachella meets Versailles. I found the perfect hilltop at Vale and Vine, string quartet, fire dancers, a champagne tower fed by drone. Total cost, just under $180,000. I nearly inhaled a crumb. I set my glass down. He didn't flinch. "And you," he said, pointing straight at me, "get to make it happen. Come on, sis, it's not like you're doing anything real with your money." The room went quiet. Even the grandfather clock seemed to hold its breath. I looked at Mom, waiting for the shutdown. Instead, she tilted her head. "Sweetheart, it would mean the world to Jude. You've been so fortunate lately. Isn't it time to give back?" Dad kept chewing. Didn't look up. Didn't speak. That's when it hit me. I wasn't family. I was financing. I excused myself before I said something I'd regret. Again. Back at my cottage, I sat at the kitchen island with a glass of my own 2018 cab and tried to scrub the night from my skin. My phone buzzed. Rhea, my vineyard manager and only person with functioning radar. Check Jude's story. I opened it. Split screen. On one side, him toasting with his planner. On the other, drone footage of my Jeep pulling into my gravel drive, windows down, paint sun-faded. Caption: "When your loaded sister lives like she's off-grid," comments rolled in. "At least she's not faking it. That cottage screams midlife crisis. She drives that?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell every stranger exactly what I'd built, what I owned, how I paid for it with my own hands. But I didn't. I just stared. She thinks this is about a party. She has no idea what she just started. 2 days passed. I didn't return a single call, didn't answer a text. Rhea offered to yeet my phone into the Russian River. I was tempted. Instead, I silenced everything and buried myself in harvest projections. My hands moved, but my lungs stayed clenched. The video was still up. Still racking likes. Still being shared by people who thought it was hilarious that I drove a 12-year-old car and didn't flaunt money I hadn't inherited. "She won't stop," Rhea said, drumming her fingers on the tasting room bar. "I know," I said. But she's not the one I'm worried about. I'd seen this coming in fragments, like slow leaks behind drywall. Now the wall had split, and the rot was spreading. That afternoon I was reviewing barrel samples when I saw a familiar silhouette through the frosted glass of the winery office. My stomach dropped. My mother didn't make appointments. She breezed in like she still signed the checks. "I thought I'd drop by," she said, setting a foil-wrapped loaf on my desk. "Still no tasting room, host? You really ought to warm this place up." I forced a smile. "Hey, Mom," she sat uninvited. "You work too hard. Just like your father, though he was never great with money. You get that from me?" I stayed silent. I could feel Ria's eyes on me through the glass, but I didn't wave her in. Then Mom reached into her tote and pulled out a cream envelope. "Brought something for you to review," she said lightly, like it was a recipe swap. I opened it slowly. Expected nothing. Got a budget breakdown. At the top, Jude's 35th Dream Event. Halfway down, underlined in coral Sharpie, venue contribution, Leora Vale, $180,000, confirmed. My throat dried. "Confirmed?" My voice came out sharper than intended. "Who confirmed this?" Mom's smile didn't budge. "Sweetheart, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Jude doesn't have that kind of liquidity, and your father and I are on a fixed income now. He's your brother." She humiliated me online. She was being playful. She mocked my life. She's going through a phase. I stared. "You're really asking me to bankroll the person who just used me as clickbait?" "I'm not asking," she said calmly. "I'm showing you the plan. You've always been the responsible one. This is just what's expected." There it was again, expected. Not requested, not discussed, decided. I picked up the loaf, handed it back. "Thanks for the zucchini bread." She looked wounded, like I'd slapped her. "Don't be dramatic, Leora." "I think you've confused the definition of that word." She stood, smoothing her blouse like she'd just closed escrow. "Let me know if you want the planner's contact. She's very boutique." Then she walked out, leaving gardenia perfume and that envelope behind. I didn't tear it up. I didn't scream. I walked to the window, watched the vines roll gold in the late light, and let my jaw lock into place. They didn't ask. They assumed I'd pay for silence. I stood there longer than I realized, frozen in front of the glass, watching nothing. The sun sank, but I didn't notice until the hills went indigo. Eventually, I turned off the lights, walked through the quiet cottage, and landed in the kitchen. The zucchini bread sat on the counter, wrapped in foil like a peace offering. Mom baked that same recipe when I had mono at 11. I used to think it meant love. Now it felt like a receipt. I poured a glass of the 18, opened my laptop, and tried to focus on anything else. Irrigation schedules, label designs, payroll. My hands didn't move. My eyes just stared until the screen blurred. That's when the memory hit. I was 11, hospital bed, sheets too thin, monitors blinking. Mom didn't leave my side. She curled up in the vinyl recliner, wrapped in her coat, breathing shallow. "You're the reason I'm strong," she whispered one night, stroking my hair. "You saved me from myself, Leora." I remember blinking up at her, scared and small. The next night, I overheard her on the phone with Dad, furious he hadn't brought the right insurance forms. "We gave up everything for her," she hissed. "I quit my practice. You're working doubles like a pack mule. I don't care what it takes. We're not leaving her in some state facility." Then she hung up, looked at me, and smiled like none of it happened. "We gave up so much for you, sweetheart. Just promise you'll never forget that, okay?" I was 11. I nodded. Back then, I thought it was devotion. I had no idea it was a promissory note. My chest ached as I sat in the present, my adult self, alone in a quiet kitchen with a fridge full of takeout containers, and no one asking how I felt. just what I could give. They never ask. They expect, and if you say no, they remind you what they've done for you. Guilt was always the invoice they sent when I didn't comply. I started remembering all the other times. College tuition meetings, where I was expected to understand that Jude's creative path meant he'd flunk out of 3 majors while I waited. Tables, holidays where my gifts were met with, wow, not bad for someone with no ring on her finger. Every sacrifice was supposed to come with a thank you note, except mine. I opened a draft email to Mom. Something soft. Something diplomatic. I appreciate you stopping by. I just wish things were handled more openly. I deleted it in one stroke. Then I walked to the freezer, opened it, and slid the zucchini bread inside, right between the edamame and an ancient bottle of gin. I closed the door without blinking. I'm not your debt to collect, I whispered. I'm not your redemption story. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. But for the first time in years, I felt ground beneath me. I used to think being needed meant being loved. Now I'm not so sure. The next morning I was back at my desk in the winery loft, early, before the fog even burned off. I hadn't slept much, but I didn't feel tired. I felt honed. My inbox was full of the usual. Client inquiries, olive oil vendor confirmations, inquiries for harvest weddings. None of it held my attention. Then Rhea walked in holding a thick manila envelope like it might bite. Courier dropped this 10 minutes ago, she said. From Jude's fiancé's assistant. Labeled urgent. Guess whose name is on it? She dropped it on my desk. My full name in elegant garamond beneath the embossed crest of Hilltop and Oak Events. I opened it slowly. Inside, a glossy contract packet, heavy stock, gold foil, signature tabs. Looked like a standard venue agreement for a property I'd never heard of. The Overlook at Silverado. They'd penciled in a family contact section. There it was. Family Financial Liaison. Leora Vale. Signature required. Didn't make sense until page 7. Small print under liability adjustments. In the event the primary booking party fails to remit payment in full within 30 business days, the listed family contact assumes responsibility for all unpaid balances, fees and penalties including legal and collection costs. I blinked. Read it again. Then I laughed. Short, dry. She really thought I wouldn't read this, I said aloud. Rhea crossed her arms. She thought guilt would sign it for you. My fingers curled around the contract, just enough to feel the paper resist. I didn't speak. I slid the packet into my lower drawer and labeled it in my head. Evidence. You know, I said. If she put this much effort into managing her own finances, she wouldn't need a backup wallet with my face on it. Rhea raised an eyebrow. Want me to shred it? No, let her wonder. I opened email, composed a new message to Hilltop and Oak's assistant. No greeting. Subject. Recontract request body. We do not process documents submitted through emotional channels. All future communications must be routed through our legal department. Unsolicited contracts will not be acknowledged. L. Vale send. Then I opened my calendar, scrolled to next week, created a recurring event, monitor financial setups, family. I stared at the screen, then whispered, that's the last time they catch me off guard. This wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't betrayal anymore. This was business. And in business I don't scream. I build walls so high they feel it in their bones. Saturday mornings at Vale and Vine used to be my sanctuary. Quiet walkthroughs, clipboard in hand, checking trellises, lighting, and floral deliveries like a conductor tuning an orchestra before the guests arrived. But this morning, as I moved through the barrel room, I felt it. A charge in the air. Something was wrong. Rhea trailed behind with her tablet, double-checking the reservation system. She paused beneath the chalkboard specials and squinted. Did you approve the white peonies for next weekend's VIP? No, I said. I haven't touched next weekend's calendar. Her brows knit. Well, someone did. Request is in, along with fire pits, imported lanterns from Marrakech, and a special permit for amplified acoustics. I walked over, scanned the entry. Client initials, JV3. My chest tightened. She wouldn't, I said more to myself. Rhea tilted her head. She might. We headed to the back office. I logged in, bypassed the third-party platform, and there it was. Vale and Vine Grand Harvest Package, booked via external agency. Date, Jude's birthday weekend. No call, no email, no heads up. She booked my vineyard like it was an Airbnb, like I was a stranger. She's trying to force your hand, Rhea said quietly. If the party's already rolling, you'll look petty canceling. It was smart. Desperate, but smart. I didn't speak. I opened the security archive from the night before. And there he was, Jude in Italian loafers, striding across my crush pad like it was his catwalk, laughing, gesturing, talking animatedly to a planner I didn't know. His hands flailed as he pointed toward the ridge, spun in a full circle to show the vibe. She's acting like she already owns the place, Rhea muttered. I leaned back, crossed my arms. My eyes didn't leave the screen. She thinks I won't touch her in public. Rhea stayed silent, knowing better than to interrupt that kind of stillness. She thought this was a game of optics and passive-aggressive elegance. But she was playing in my vineyard now, and in my vineyard the rules are different. Don't cancel anything, I said finally. Not yet, Rhea gave me a long look. You're letting him go through with it? I'm letting him bury himself. I opened a blank folder on my desktop. JV unauthorized booking. Subfolder, communications. She wants this party to be his coronation, I said, eyes narrowing. Let's make sure he earns every grape, Rhea smirked. You want a paper trail? I want a mountain. We walked back out to the crush pad. Staff were setting up for a rosé release, unaware of the quiet war unfolding behind the scenes. This was no longer about lanterns or contracts. This wasn't about a birthday. This was about who owns the name on the gate. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was working from my home office, windows cracked to let in the scent of blooming jasmine. For once I'd found rhythm, editing floor plans, sipping my third espresso in relative silence. Then my phone buzzed. Rhea, check Crushpad Cam 2. It's happening. I didn't ask what. I clicked into the live feed without hesitation. Vale and Vine's barrel room flickered onto my screen. Oak racks gleaming, fairy lights soft. And then I saw him. Jude storming across the concrete in Chelsea boots, mid-rant. This is the color palette? Are you serious? This looks like a community college mixer. He waved at the decorator who stood frozen beside a half-finished centerpiece. The florist winced as Jude yanked a peony from the arrangement and crushed it underfoot. You call this luxury? This is depressing. My followers will roast me. A young seller hand walked by, arms full of glassware. Jude snapped his fingers. You glass girl. That's not the stemware I ordered. Is anyone here literate? The kid paused, startled, Spanish his first language. He gave a timid nod and kept walking. Jude rolled his eyes. Unbelievable. You let amateurs run this place. Then he grabbed a clipboard off the tasting bar and slammed it down hard enough that it skittered across the floor and shattered a Riedel. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just watched. That's when Rhea stepped into frame, calm, spine straight, expression unreadable. This is a private venue under contract, she said clearly. Our team deserves professional respect. Jude turned slowly, scanning her like she was a smudge on his shoe. Oh, please. Do you even know who I am? Rhea didn't hesitate. Do you? For a beat, the room went still. Jude scoffed, muttered something about lawyers, and stormed out. But I wasn't listening anymore. I'd heard all I needed. I leaned back, rewound the footage, played it again. His voice, his face, his entitlement. All recorded. I minimized the video, opened a folder already waiting. Incident response. Inside, Client Policy Section 4.1, Grounds for Termination and Ban. Hostile behavior towards staff. Defamation of venue. Willful property disruption. Every box checked. I clicked and dragged the video in. She thought she was playing a private game of pretend. She gave me everything I needed without realizing it. 2 days later, the vineyard looked like a magazine spread. Olive trees strung with bulbs. Farm tables flanked by ghost chairs, the ridge glowing amber at golden hour. Jude waltzed through the gravel courtyard like a rock star on tour, all hip sway and breathy laughter. His fiancée Tatum trailed behind, quietly attentive but distracted. Her parents, Evelyn and Grant Whitmore, walked with measured steps. You could tell they sized rooms by how the light fell. Jude pointed at the pergola. "Isn't this perfect? It screams legacy." From my office loft, I watched everything through the security feed. Rhea stood near the entrance, greeting them with flawless professionalism. She looked up briefly toward the camera and gave the slightest nod. Time. I adjusted the cuffs of my slate blazer, straightened my spine, and waited. Down below, Jude launched into monologue. The string lights are hand-strung from Tuscany. The owner works with ultra-high net worth clients, very exclusive. Evelyn tilted her head. And who is the owner? Jude smiled too wide. We have connections. Grant folded his hands. So you don't know? Before Jude could fumble, Rhea pressed a button on her tablet. The ambient music cut. Silence blanketed the courtyard. I began to descend. My boots clicked against the wooden steps, steady and sharp. Every eye turned. I paused halfway, met Jude's gaze, offered the faintest smile, then continued down. "Welcome to Vale and Vine," I said, extending my hand to Evelyn. "I'm Leora Vale, owner and winemaker." Grant blinked. Evelyn raised a brow, but her eyes flickered with interest, not offense. Jude looked like someone had yanked the earth out from under him. "You own this place?" he choked. "But you live in that tiny house." I turned to him, calm and clear. A smart vintner doesn't wear her assets on her sleeve. She builds them barrel by barrel and lets the wine speak for itself. Evelyn smiled slowly. How refreshing. I was beginning to think nobody under 50 believed in discretion anymore. Grant nodded. "Impressive, Ms. Vale. Very impressive." Tatum looked at me with a new expression. Not pity, not confusion. Recognition. Jude stood frozen, mouth slightly open, trying to summon something. Nothing came. I didn't gloat. I simply turned to Rhea. "Please escort the Whitmores to the Ridge Terrace. I'll join them shortly." Rhea nodded and gestured gracefully toward the path. As they moved, Jude lingered, breath shallow, fists clenched. I didn't look at him when I passed. For the first time in my life, I didn't need them to clap. I had the vineyard. We moved through the terrace slowly, deliberately. The Whitmores admired the vines with practiced elegance, nodding thoughtfully, speaking sparingly. Evelyn pulled me aside near the olive grove as Jude tried and failed to reinsert himself. "You built all of this?" she asked. "From the ground up," I said. She took a breath and gave me a look only women with mileage know how to give. An assessment and an affirmation at once. "You're exactly the kind of woman our family respects. Quiet strength. Real results." Jude's voice cracked from behind us. "Wait, Evelyn, can we just—" She didn't turn around. Grant approached a moment later, placing a firm hand on Tatum's shoulder. "You may want to reconsider your priorities," he said to her plainly. Tatum looked at Jude, then at me. Her silence didn't protect him. It exposed him. Jude broke down in the gravel courtyard as they walked away. He pressed his back against the tasting room wall and slid to the ground, voice cracking in a half sob. I didn't stop. I didn't gloat. I walked right past, head high, boots steady, pulse unreadable. That night I returned to my cottage and turned off every light except the kitchen. The silence was different now. It wasn't empty. It was earned. I was sipping tea when my phone buzzed. A single text from Dad. "Can we talk?" I hesitated, then hit call. He answered immediately. "Hi, Princess." I didn't reply. "I just think maybe don't push things further, okay? It's still his birthday week, that was it. Not I'm proud of you, not you handled that with grace. Just don't make waves. It's his week." I laughed quietly into the phone. "I stood there," I said. "I stood right in front of you all, and you still didn't see me." He sighed. "It's not like that." "It is exactly like that," I said. "It always has been. Look, we just want the family to stay intact," I cut in. "It's never been intact. It's been built around Jude like a house of cards." He didn't deny it. "I'm not mad," I said, suddenly calm. "I'm just done." He paused. "You don't mean that." "I do." I hung up, slid the phone into the drawer beside my sink and closed it gently. Outside, the lights of Napa blinked against the darkness. Distant jazz floated from a vineyard a mile away, the kind of song that makes you ache and breathe at the same time. I watched it all. Not waiting for someone to show up, not hoping someone would call back, just breathing. I didn't lose my family. I just stopped asking them to show up. 2 weeks passed. No headlines. No apology tour. Just quiet, the kind that doesn't echo. It settles. I was at my kitchen table sorting harvest contracts, sipping lukewarm coffee, when I noticed the email. Subject, "I'm sorry." From Martin Vale. I clicked before I could talk myself out of it. "You were right. I should have stood up. I'm sorry, Dad, that was it. No buts. No passive-aggressive deflection. No, but you know how your brother is." Just a single sentence. Late but clean. I read it 5 times, then deleted it. But I smiled when I did. Vale and Vine hadn't slowed. If anything, it was surging. We had 4 weddings booked for the next month, 2 corporate retreats, and a high-profile charity auction that had San Francisco magazines circling. Rhea was fielding requests from planners in 3 states. She walked into my office with her tablet. "We've got a request from Evelyn Whitmore's niece. Asked for you by name." "Of course she did," I said. "We'll take good care of her." I meant it. That same day, my phone lit up with a push notification from a wine country blog. Influencer event canceled. Vale and Vine denies involvement. Speculation mounts. And then, are these luxury parties just for show? Inside the collapse of a brand. They didn't name him, but I didn't need them to. Later that evening, out of pure curiosity, I checked Jude's socials. His latest reel was still up, but the energy was different. Muted lighting, no filter, comments off. He stared into the camera for almost 2 minutes before speaking. I didn't watch all of it, not because I couldn't, because I didn't need to. There was no satisfaction, no anger, no fire in my chest. Just air. I closed the app, put my phone face down, and walked outside with a glass of the 18. The porch was warm, washed in the orange glow of the setting sun. The valley was quiet except for the rustle of wind through the vines. I drove past my parents' house that morning. Slowed for half a second, didn't stop. Not because I was bitter, because I didn't feel the pull anymore. I used to think peace came when people apologized, when the scales finally tipped, when the villains got exposed and the family admitted they were wrong. But peace is quieter than that. Peace is walking away when no one asks you to. Peace is deleting the message without replying. Peace is saying no and not explaining why. I took a sip of wine. The night wrapped around me like a soft exhale. And maybe that's the real revenge. Not winning, but walking away clean, you know. If there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that peace doesn't come when people finally treat you right. It comes when you start treating yourself like you matter. For years, I thought loyalty meant silence. that being a good daughter, a good sister, meant making myself smaller so others could shine. But shrinking never saved anyone. You can love your family and still draw a line. You can walk away without hating them, and you can stop chasing validation from people who never bothered to look at you clearly. I didn't win by being louder. I won by finally listening to myself. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible in your own story? Have you ever carried guilt that was never yours to begin with? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your truth. And hey, if this story hit home, type 1, or let me know where you're watching from. If you didn't connect with it, that's okay too. Drop a comment and tell me why. Was it the message? The pace? The ending? This channel is all about real stories for real people. So if you want more honest emotional storytelling like this, don't forget to subscribe. You never know. The next story might be the one that finally puts your feelings into words. Thanks for spending your time here. See you in the next one.